Hello students, this is chapter number 12 friction, important questions. My dear students, question number 1 is define friction. Here write down the definition of friction. What is friction? Friction is defined as resistance offered by the surfaces, resistance which is offered by the surfaces that are in contact when they move past each other. It means that it is the resistance. It is the resistance offered by the surfaces. Two surfaces which are in contact. That are in contact when they move past each other. It causes a force which is known as friction. Now next is, what are the factors affecting friction? So you have to write down the factors which affect the force of friction. Number 1, it depends on the nature of two surfaces that are in contact. So, first factor is on the nature of the two surfaces that are in contact. It affects the friction. Number 2, on the force that is acting on these surfaces. Question number 3, how many types of friction are there? Name them. There are 4 types of friction. They are: number 1, static friction. Number 2, sliding friction. Number 3, rolling friction. And number 4, fluid friction. So there are 4 types of friction: static friction, sliding friction, rolling friction and fluid friction. Now next important question is, question number 4, define spring balance. Now what is spring balance? It is a device used for measuring the force acting on an object. Acting on an object. Clear? Spring balance is a device through which we can measure the force acting on an object. Question number 2. How does spring balance work? Now spring balance, it consists coiled spring which gets stretched when a force is applied. A force is applied to it. Stretching of a spring is measured by stretching of spring is measured by a pointer moving on a graduated scale. A pointer moving on a graduated scale. The reading on the scale gives the magnitude of the force. The reading on the scale gives the magnitude of the force, means strength of the force. So spring balance, it consists coiled spring which gets stretched when a force is applied to it, and when the spring stretches or stretching of spring is measured by a pointer moving on a graduated scale. The reading on the scale gives the magnitude of force. Next is question number 6. Friction can also produce heat. Justify. There are so many examples through which we can explain this, that friction can also produce heat. Number 1, rubbing palms. Warm the hands, है ना? Right? Secondly, strike a matchstick against rough surface, against a rough surface, it catches fire. It catches fire. Number 3, the jar mixer becomes hot. The jar mixer becomes hot. These three terms, rubbing palms, striking a matchstick against rough surface, the jar mixer becomes hot after using continuously, after continuous use. All these are the examples where friction can also produce heat. Next question is, why the sole of shoes is grooved? Answer is, the sole of shoes if grooved increases the friction, and for better grip so that we can walk safely. for better grip. The soles of shoes, if grooved, increases the friction for better grip so that we can walk safely. We can walk safely. What are lubricants? Give examples. Now, what are lubricants? Those substances which reduce friction. Example, oil, grease. These are the examples of lubricants. Next question. Question number 9. Can we reduce friction to zero by polishing surfaces or using large amount of lubricants? No, friction can neither bring to zero. There are some irregularities always. There are some irregularities always present on the surface, or no surface is smooth, completely smooth. Okay, there are some irregularities, so we cannot reduce friction to zero by polishing surfaces. Okay, question number 10. Define rolling friction. What is rolling friction? Very simple answer. When one body rolls over the surface of another body, the resistance to its motion is called rolling friction. Next is question number 11. Give differences between static and sliding friction. Now, what is static friction? Write down the definition. The force required to overcome friction at the instant an object starts moving. An object starts moving from rest is a measure of the measure of static friction. It is the friction which opposes when we start an object moving from rest. In sliding friction, the force required to keep the object moving with the object moving with the same speed is a measure of sliding friction. Sliding friction. So this is the difference between static friction and sliding friction. This friction it is larger than or greater than sliding friction, whereas sliding friction is less or smaller than static friction. Next, question number 12. Define fluids. In science, the common name for gases and liquids is fluids. So, in science, the common name used for gases and liquids is fluids. Question number 13. Define drag. What is drag? The frictional force exerted by fluids is also called drag. The frictional force exerted by fluids is also called drag. Clear? Now next is thanks note for your patience, for your love, for your support, for your listening. Today's thought, food for thought is what? Love yourself, then only you love others. Be happy always, keep smiling always. Have a nice day.